Hello there, and welcome back to Four Times in a Podcast. What do you make of this? 3 episodes in a week since we've been back. We've obviously had the preview of the title victory, reviewed that, and now we're back to preview the final derby of the season. Comes as Celtic travel to Ibrox, looking to go 20 points clear in the league. So we're just the four of us together tonight to discuss what it means, how important it is, and how Celtic need to respond in terms of they've lost the last two derbies, of course, and we'll just basically look at how, is it a dead rubber, as some are saying, or is there an added importance given that we are on the back of two defeats to them? So, as I say, it's full complement tonight. Myself, Darren, joined by Danny, Andy and Tony, so delighted that you've joined us. Danny, I'll come to you first. As I say, it's a bit of a tricky one. The league was obviously sealed last week. There's never nothing to play for in these games, and I think I can attest for all you saying that if we were to lose another one, it would be very annoying. But what's your thoughts going into it? Do Celtic have a point to prove given the last two derby performances, or do you think it is just about the players going out to enjoy walking out to simply the best?
In the grand scheme of things, it means very little, although I wouldn't like to lose 3 times to them in a season. Players have got some sort of professional pride to be going after, especially the way that they performed in the last game at Celtic Park. They were really bad. A lot of them were complacent that day and got fun out. So they owe the fans their performance. There's got to be Celtic fans there to cheer the team on. If Rangers were to win 6-0, 7-0, it means very little, but we don't want to be on the end, even if they win 1-0, we don't want to be on the end of another defeat. But to be honest, we've kind of got it whatever way we want. We've won the league at the park, the league's done. Rangers have got nothing else to play for now. They went and they drew last week. They beat us the last twice, we owe them a doing. I just hope the players are up for it, the players are motivated. I think they will be. Hopefully they don't want to get beat, but to be honest, it's a good chance for us. Like, we should be going there to beat them. Everything's in our favour. We are better than them. I know the last two games we've lost, but we've shown over the course of the season we're a better team. They're fucking pish, and the players should be going in with the mentality of taking a good few goals off them. But again, if it doesn't happen, it'll be rather annoying, but we'll move on. We've got the Scottish Cup to go for, but I really hope that the players turn up with some sort of pride to go after, because they let themselves down, and obviously the fans as well, in March, and they really do owe this mob one, because they're not very good, and we made them look good at Ibrox the last time we were there, so that's another kind of thing should be on their mind. But again, who knows what Celtic will turn up, because the Celtic have turned up in the last two have been different for the team that's played all season. But they really should be going in with the mentality of, we're the champions, we've had our number, but the best team in the country, and we're going to take 3 or 4 off them, because they're not very good. And Celtic should sense weakness for that mob. Like, every team apart from us that's played them in the last 2 or 3 months has completely overran them. So it'd be nice for us to do that on Sunday. Is it Sunday? Aye. But again, be a big one, great one to win, and if we lose, it would be rather annoying, and it would take a bit of shine off. People will claim it won't, but it will take some shine off the season if they were to beat us 3 times in the one season, because at the end of the day, they're rivals and we hate them and they hate us, and you don't want to lose to them. So it's a big one for the players to go out and prove that that's not going to happen.
I agree with that. Andy, I'll bring you in. As Danny said, it's no our biggest game remaining this season. Obviously, we've got that Scottish Cup final on the 24th of May against Aberdeen, where we're looking to seal a treble. But how much of an importance do you put on this? As Danny said, this is a Rangers team their home form is absolutely terrible. I think it's the 2nd of February since they last won a home game in domestic or Europe, and Barry Ferguson's not been able to win a game at Ibrox yet, but he was able to, as Danny mentioned, he came to Celtic Park in March and took off 3 points. Now, what do you think Celtic need to do differently, and how important is it? As Danny said, of course it's going to be annoying to lose any game, but do you think it could have any sort of lasting damage on how the season's viewed, as Danny sort of suggested there, if we were to go and lose a 3rd time in a row? And just say what's your sort of opening thoughts about the game on Sunday?
Like as Danny said, in terms of, if you look at it from a point of view, it's just another game. It doesn't mean anything because the league's tied up, and obviously we're not going to. It's not them we'll play in the sort of real meaningful game, which is the cup final against Aberdeen. But you don't. You never want to lose these games, but losing to them 3 times in one season is completely unacceptable, and that just won't fly. Losing to them at any point is fucking unacceptable. They are rank rotten, but 3 times in a season is just that should never be happening. And the players, they really owe the fans to go out and correct that what's happened. We've not been good enough in games against them for probably more than the 2 games, although the sort of 2 that they've beat us have shown it a bit more. Obviously we've beat them in cup finals and stuff, but we've really no shown ourselves in the best light and performed the way that we should be. Ultimately, like, we are a better team than them, and we're not showing that in these games for one reason or another. So I think it's huge, and even from a point of view, listen, next season FC are always going to be that, but like you don't want to give them anything to cling on to, and that is something. If they beat us 3 times in a season, the next thing will be, they've got our number. They just need to correct their form against the rest of the teams in the league. You don't want to give them anything like on it, nothing whatsoever. So it's down to us, down to the managers, down to the players to go correct that. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I think we will. I think we will sort of get it right against them. I'm not really sure. I can't exactly put my finger on what it is that sort of had us off it for so much against them and just looking like a totally different team at times. When even against better opposition, we seem to play far better when you take sort of Europe into account. And the teams in the level of teams that we've played and performed really, really well against, like Bayern Munich, for example. So I think while if you look at it and take the rivalry and everything else out, it's pretty much just another game to tick it off and on the way to lifting the title in Toffee and going to obviously Hampden for a cup final. But no, there's always meaning in all these games, and ultimately you never want to lose to them. But no, there's a score to settle there that the fans deserve it. The players need to go and correct it, and the manager himself, like, they know what it means. He knows what it means, and that's something that, like, they're not going to be. You wouldn't assume they're going to be as bad as they are forever. Like, you can't be having, especially somebody like Ferguson, basically outsmarting you in these games. Like, 1.5 games can happen, poor performances can happen, but when it's consistently, then there's a problem. So that's something which the manager will obviously look to put to bed and look to put any suggestion that they've got their number to bed. And I think that's what they'll do. But Dan, there's always something in these games, and it's down to us to go and sort of take the initiative and get the job done.
No, I agree with a lot of what you say there. Tony, I'll come to you now. It's the first time we've been at Ibrox since that game in January where we were... I think when we look back in the season review, for a lot of people it's going to be a low point, not just because how we played that day, but how well we'd been playing in the sort of build-up to it. It was sort of in that sort of hot streak that we'd had in the season. Do you agree with the other two that we've sort of got that point to prove? And what would you think's been missing in these last few games? Obviously we've lost the last 2, and plus we conceded 3 in the cup final as well. What are we doing wrong in these last few games?
Well, the last 2 have started atrociously. We've conceded, I think we conceded 3 minutes to Raskin at Parkhead and maybe 5 or 6 minutes. When Hadji scored at Ibrox, funnily enough, we probably should have taken the lead at Ibrox even sooner. I think Kyogo had a chance, if I remember correctly, but we've not started fast enough. I think we've maybe underestimated them a wee bit. They're obviously a poor team. They've got no consistency. That is undeniable. Whether they beat us 15-0 on Sunday or we beat them, but they have not been a good team. They've been poor. I think their European runs kind of masked how bad they've been. I mean, in the league, we're 18 points ahead of them, and they've beat us twice. I mean, that's quite astonishing that they've beat us twice. The league was done the first game of the split, so that shows you how poor they've been against all the other teams. I think defensively it'd been quite weak against them. I thought to lose a header to Raskin that caused a goal in both games. I mean, he's the smallest guy on the pitch. You know they kind of aim for him. He's going to make that run. Not be wise to it. It's poor. The League Cup final was a bit of a warning, I think. Even in that game, some of the goals we conceded were criminal. Getting ourselves in front and then conceding to a daft tap-in for Diamandi, and then to take the lead with a few minutes to go, and then let Danilo score, and then at Celtic Park at 2 each. If that finishes 2 each, we're bouncing out of the place. We've come back for 2-0 down. But to concede because I think Johnson slips and it just becomes kind of comedy errors, and then they get a bit of a break and go ahead. So the truth is, the last 2 games against them especially, we've not been good enough, and I think the players know that. We had Chesney McGregor back. He did play the last game at Ibrox, and we were horrendous. I mean, the likes of Hattie never turned up. Maida couldn't really get going, so it just wasn't a good... Couldn't was anonymous, so I think it's an opportunity for the team and the manager to go and beat them. If we lose, is it going to dampen the season for me? I don't know. I mean, if we win the treble, we're going to turn around and look at, well, the games that beat us, we've been so far ahead of them. The two games that really mattered, the start of the season to set out the stall we won, and the League Cup final we won. But it would be slightly worrying getting into next season, I think, because Rangers are going to have a better manager for next year. They can't get a worse manager, that's the truth. There's no way Rangers are going to go out and find a worse manager than Barry Ferguson. That would be impossible. So if he manages to beat Rodgers twice with such a poor team, you would be a wee bit wondering what the fuck's going on. So no, it's not a meaningless game. 2023 when we went there and we had O up front and it was a kind of Kobayashi played, that really was the definition of meaningless. It was just all about the final. We had beat them every game that season when it mattered. We put them out both cups. We'd won big games and we'd already drew at Ibrox, so that was meaningless. But I guess the thing is, when it comes to meaningless derbies, Rangers are usually pretty good at them. They beat us in 2019 at Ibrox 2-0 when Lennon was the boss and the league was won. They obviously won that one in 2023. I think even when they had the league won, they beat us after that. But again, two of our greatest ever results at Ibrox have came when the league's done. Martin O'Neill in 2001, we beat them 3-0 with Luvo, and obviously Rodgers in 2017, we beat them 5-1. So I'd like to think the players the players know how much it means to the fans, and you never want to lose to them at anything. Never mind 3 derbies in a row. Yes, they'll not win anything. Yes, we've had the bragging rights this season. Yes, we'll have them get into the summer, etc., etc., etc. But you just don't want to keep them in at all. So I think it's going to be an interesting game. I don't really know what to expect. I think we never done a podcast before the last one, which was good, because I think we would all predicted we would hammer them, and it just didn't work out that way. So I can't confidently say I think we're going to go there and hammer them. I think we've got a good chance of winning, but we're going to need to start fast this time. We need to get a grip in the game. We need to get the first goal. We've not the first goal in the last 3 derbies, and that's usually crucial. I'm sure Ian Crocker will, in between singing the sash, be able to give us the stats on that. So, and that's always it. Whoever scores first usually wins the derby, and they definitely don't lose it. So I'd like to see us start fast, quiet their crowd down. We'll obviously have a bit more crowd ourselves. It gives us a bit of an advantage, and hopefully it's a bit of a party.
I certainly hope so. As you say, 2,000 Celtic fans in attendance for this one, biggest attendance we'll have had there for a while. Sort of agree with what you have said. I think the lasting impact will sort of be based on the performance. I think that we've really let ourselves down. The last one's a bit of a sort of freak incident, as you say. If Johnson doesn't slip and Carter Vickers wins the ball, then we come out 2 each, having been 2-0 down. And although I thought we were terrible that day, I thought we would have merited the point given the second half sort of comeback. I think it's one of the ones that I'm not so sure about the lasting impact in terms of next year's season, etc. I think maybe what we've been doing wrong is I think the players just see it as another game, and we gave them so much credit, like for last week and cup finals, etc., and Rodgers' teams turning up when it matters. Now, before the last one at Celtic Park, Brendan Rodgers says everything right in terms of wanting to put wrongs right from Ibrox in January, and I can't mind the exact quotes he said, but I remember just in the build-up to it sounded like they were aware of what had went wrong in January, and then, as you said, Tony, we just capitulated in the first 5 minutes, conceded a header to the smallest player in the park, and just, it was really got to be one of our worst 45 minutes of the season. So I think the players, as you mentioned, that Postecoglou game, I said to you the other day, it ruined one of the days of my honeymoon when I was in Greece, funnily enough, and that Aussie Greek sent a B team out and get hammered off a Beale's team. But I don't think that'll happen on Sunday in terms of I wouldn't be expecting too much rotation. Daniel, coming you, would you be expecting many changes? Obviously, a big difference from the last game that was mentioned there was that Callum McGregor will be available. A lot of people thought that what went wrong at Celtic Park was sort of not having him in the midfield. I've been advocating for McGregor all season when people have been writing him off and wanting him out of the team. I think he's so pivotal. And just in terms of how would you line up, would it be the same as Saturday? Obviously, it looks like Jota's going to be out for a long period and it's not confirmed yet, but I think we can pretty much say with 99% certainty they won't be involved on Sunday. So how would you be lining up?
I think it'll be the same team that started last week, apart from probably Maeda on the left and Ida through the middle. And I agree, I think McGregor being back for this one is going to be massive. They totally, undoubtedly missed him on the last time we played them. The pace of the play in the midfield was too slow. Hatate, Engels and McCowan, I think they're all great players, but they're all looking for the killer pass. They're all looking for the that through ball, whereas McGregor keeps it simple and he kept the ball and, he moves us up the park and you see he's influencing the team every week. So that'll be big for us. But just thinking about how we'll line up, I can't see Rodgers doing what Ange did and changing the team too much. That was, well, that was a bit, I remember thinking, it was a bit strange because we were really poor at that time. I remember we were going through a bit of daft form under Ange and he put out that team and I still thought they were going to beat them. So I think Rodgers will put his strongest team out. I just agree with the boys and yourself have said that. I don't think it would take anything away for the treble if we were to go on and win it. Not at all. But you would look back and you want to look back and remember every result of the season. You just see Celtic win a treble and that's enough for you to feel good. But you don't want to lose 3 times to them, especially vice to, as Tony said, the worst manager they could ever have got. I mean, it's mental because I don't know if this could be right or wrong. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure they've beat us twice. But they beat us. Well, this is true. When they beat us, they go into the next game against us even further behind than they were after they beat us, which just speaks to them. I mean, that how bad they've been all season. And that game at Celtic Park in August, it really, and I know it's easy to say it because you're at fan front, but Tony was right. The only 2 games that have had any real jeopardy this season, we dusted them in the league and we beat them in penalties in the League Cup. People are bringing up the League Cup and saying that they hammered us in the League Cup and they deserve to beat us in the League Cup. Celtic fans are saying that. I think it's complete nonsense. It's a cup final, 2 teams were going for it. Celtic should have blew them away after half an hour of the second half. Their second equaliser kind of came after the first kind of bit of pressure in the second half, after they'd made an arse to go 2-0 up. Celtic should have been far away at that point. In the first half, we were a better team as well. So I don't buy it. People just fall into that narrative that if we don't take 4 or 5 off them, somehow they're the better team. That was what your moral victory Clermont used to bring up and all that, and the fans fed into it as well. That's how they used to celebrate getting draws at Parkhead and all that against us and telling us that we weren't as good as we think we are. We're at fan front, we can whatever as good as we want to be. I just think Rodgers is, as you said, he said a lot of the right things the last time and his team went out and under-delivered. I don't think that'll happen on Sunday. I think we'll beat them on Sunday. It's about time we just kind of turned up. And I think what you said, Dan, is right, is they just see it as another game where it's no, you need to go, and it's alright us disrespecting them and saying, we don't look at these, we don't respect these, we don't look at these in a certain way, but we do need to treat them like rivals and play accordingly because it's no nice not having, how good are the seasons when you look back and 4 and 5 against them was par for the course. And we're that far in front of them now that should be the case. But this season it's not been. I mean, they were really complacent at Celtic Park. I mean, I was happy to write after the Ibrox game in January because they lost an early goal and they gave, finally that mob had something to cheer about. And they kind of got up for it. And before you know it, we're kind of blown away. But the one at Parkhead for me was just completely unacceptable. The team owe the fans for that because as bad as we were in that game, we'll get back to 2 each and should have kicked on and won it. And yet, they conspire to throw it away at the end. So as bad as they were, they still shouldn't have get beat. So it just speaks to how bad they are. And it's about time this Celtic team, because that's the only thing. I know the 3-0 game in September was good in that, but it's the one thing that's been missing since Rodgers come back is a complete performance against this team. I think they were good in September, don't get me wrong, we were good that day and it was free going on whatever, but Rodgers' teams used to turn up and it was always a complete performance against Rangers. They owe the fans that on Sunday and I think we'll get it, and that's why, to answer your original question, he'll not make many changes. I'd just expect Maeda to start on the left and Ida to be through the middle.
Andy, what about you? I know you've not always been biggest fan of Ida and feel that he can bring more. Would you expect him to be the replacement for Jota, or do you think he could be tempted to stick with Maeda in the middle and bring somebody like James Forrest in if Jota is confirmed as ruled out?
I reckon the team that you seen was with sort of one eye on the game against Rangers, and if it wasn't for Jota being injured, I think that would be the exact same 11. So I do think Ida will come in, and listen, don't get me wrong, as I said before, I've really wanted it to work out for Ida, and you just hope that he always, when he gets the goal, he kicks on, and it's more so because you know and you've seen him have bits of quality, and you've seen him be positive and play really, really well. So hopefully it can be one of the games for him. So I do think that'll be the team. And to be honest, I'm not entirely disappointed about that, more so because Maeda's does his best work out wide. Listen, he's scored goals for fun this season. He's been brilliant, but particularly against them, And to be honest, I think against most teams, May does his best work out wide. Obviously with the pressing and with pressing the front foot and things like that, but it as well nullifying teams and really just being a threat and giving teams that sort of second thought and like fullbacks and things like that. I mean, we've all had our laughs about having been shit scared of them through the years, but it's often missed like just how important things like that are in these games, because obviously that's like the fullback is who he's up against. And it puts that seed of doubt in their mind where perhaps you'll maybe not get that level of tracking back and everything else for Jota. But a lot of it's just like we're better than them. Technically, we're a better football team than them. We've got better football players than them. All the rest, you can talk about that. But it comes down to desire, like, and the want to win. Like, you know they're going to come in. Like, Barry Passback's going to have gave it the big one, shouting and bawling at them, and they'll come out and they'll boot fuck us. That's what's going to happen. They'll kick us up and down the park, and they'll want to run harder and work harder. Like, when you talk about like, the Raskin header, like, that Raskin just wanted it more. Then I think it was Schlupp that got caught under the ball and effectively get beaten there. Like, that's just a will to get to that ball. That's all that's happened there. And particularly in games like that, like, talent will take you so far, but when you're sort of missing that element of there's something proper on the line and there's that silverware on the line, that element it's missing. And don't get me wrong, I've said it a million times before that if this was the title decider or if this was at Hampden, it was a semi-final or a final, I would back the team, because I think that sort of killer instinct kicks in for a lot of these players when that happens and when the games come around. And I think you've seen that time and time again. I think Danny's right to touch on elements of that in the cup final, and I do think that rings true a lot of the time. But when there's no that sort of silverware on the line and it comes down to the game, and like, don't get me wrong, players, they're no fans, they're not going to be sitting like, they probably don't really hate them as much as we all wish at times they did. And to be honest, the way they've treated them at times, they should. Like, you should resent them just as much as they resent you. But that's down to the manager to get that extra 5-10% out of players, to get them working harder. When that's done, like, the standards should never drop. And listen, that's football. It happens at the fucking highest level of the game. It'll happen at Champions League teams that are getting to semis and finals and all the rest of it. Like, you'll see them play meaningless games and day levels, they miss that sort of 5-10%. But it comes down to the manager to get that out of them or find another way to solve that. But you've seen it, that's all it's been. That the difference has just been that sort of desire and that will to win. And when we lose that killer instinct, because ultimately the game doesn't mean fuck all in the grand scheme of things, we're losing them. But I think tactically probably Maid does his best work for us as a team in the way we set out to play out wide, because he just makes the team second guess and certain players second guess. And when he's sort of isolated himself up front, he's probably, although it's Maeda and he could probably mark 5 people at once, having 2 centre halves to occupy and press, maybe he's a bit more difficult than sort of just being a pest buzzing up and down the left hand side. But I think the team's pretty much picked itself. I think Rodgers sort of shown his hand for that. I mean, and obviously with the Jota injury, but listen, that team we know is more than good enough to go and turn them out, and that's exactly what should be happening. But I don't expect any big surprises in the lineup, to be honest with you.
What about you, Tony? Just a quick lineup check for you. They two have went for Ida and for Jota. Would you be happy with that lineup, or are you expecting any sort of curveballs from Brendan?
Hopefully no curveballs. I would like to think Ida starts up front, and as Andy says, Maeda's crucial in the wing in these games. It's been well documented how important he is up against James Tavernier, so we'll see that in full flow hopefully, and then hopefully Maeda can pin Tavernier back, because he's still a big attacking option for them, so I think that's going to be important. I think Ida's a chance for him. He kind of dairy sell again to the Celtic support. I think a lot of people have kind of lost a bit of faith in him, but last couple of games he's been in about the goals. So look, we all know a goal at Ibrox and everything changes. You go from 0 to hero. So it's a big game for him. Kuhn looks as though he's maybe coming into a wee bit of form again, which would be brilliant. So you just want him to still have a bit of confidence, and obviously after getting the double against Dundee United, you'd like to think that's there for him. So the midfield, Engels kind of worries me a bit. I think sometimes the game can just kind of pass Engels by, and sometimes I don't really know what his purpose is. I know a lot of people, he's one of the players where half the fans think he's the second coming of Pirlo, and the other half think he's the second coming of fucking Landry Nguemo. So no disrespect to the Nguemo lovers out there, but you know what I mean. Like, people are very up and down with Engels. I think I've been that way myself, where I've wanted him to be good, and I've kind of defended him at times. Then there's other times I'm going, I don't really know what you're bringing to the table. Hatate, we know if he plays to his best, he'll be the best player on the pitch. That's fine. Bernardo's not really had a sniff since coming back from injury. I don't know why, because I think he's a pretty good player. McCowan, I thought he was poor the last game against him, so I expect Engels, Hatate, and McGregor to be the midfield, and then obviously we'll have the back five. I think could be Salo, obviously Taylor, Vickers, Scales, Johnson. Obviously Scales will be in the left, so it's got to be an interesting game, because the last time at Ibrox, Scales was a fucking disaster. He was hopeless, man. That was one of the ones after that you're saying I wouldn't let him play for us again. So I think there's a few players who've got professional pride to play for, and they've got a bit of a point to prove. So it's got to be interesting to see how they get on.
I have just had Vietnam-style flashbacks to Scales' performance in January. I forgot how bad that was till you mentioned it again, but I think he will play, and it's quite miraculous given that day. But I sort of agree. I don't know, there's something at the back of my head saying that he might go with Forrest and keep Idal on the bench. I don't know why. I've just got that sort of stuck in my head that might be the way that he goes. But it's logical to go with Ida. He's scoring goals the last few games, and as Furious says, you can make a good argument that Maeda does his best work out wide and pins Tavernier back, which is obviously one of their biggest threats. But I don't know, I know it's happened a few times with his full Celtic career that Forrest has sort of been thrown in at Ibrox, so I wouldn't be surprised if he went with that and went with Forrest, Kuhn and Maeda through the middle, but it remains to be seen. I think that having Greg Taylor and Cal McGregor back is massive for us compared to the Celtic Park derby. I know Schlupp had played a few good games before it, but I think Taylor was massively missing that day as well, the same as McGregor, just in terms of Taylor being in and inverting and getting that midfield a wee bit more backup and support as well. But we're hitting the half-hour mark, so we'll just get predictions, because I know he'll want to listen to this. Danny, what are you going for? What's your score prediction?
I think Celtic will win, and I think there'll be some goals, but I'm going to say 3-1 Celtic, and I think Ida will get the first two and Forrest will get the third off the bench.
So 3-1 for Danny. Andy, what are you going for?
Danny stole my 3-1 there, so I'm going to go 3-0. I reckon Engels is going to get in the score sheet, Ida will get the second, and then we'll get a penalty, and James Forrest will have been off the bench by that point, and we'll give the ball to him, who will score to continue his record.
You stole my prediction there. I was going to go for 3-0, so I was just going to say I think we'll bookmark the season with Derby wins a 3-0. It was obviously 3-0 at Celtic Park in the first one. I think it'll be 3-0 to Celtic on Sunday. Go for Nicholas Kuhn, Dyson Maeda and Arnie Engels to get the goals. Tony, are you going to wrap us up with 4 predictions there, win?
I can't eat. A draw wouldn't surprise me, but I'll go for 4-2 Celtic. I'll go for Kuhn to get a double, Ida to score, and I'm going to go with Danny. I think Forrest, his first ever goal at Ibrox, so 4-2 Celtic.
There you go, some positive predictions there as Celtic look to go and get a victory at Ibrox on Sunday. We hope you enjoy it, whatever you're doing for it, whether you're in the house, at the pub, or if you're lucky enough to have a ticket. We hope you enjoy it and hopefully see Celtic go 20 points clear in the league. We'll be back soon after that one to review it and look at what went well and what went not so well. Hopefully we're only talking about positives on Sunday or Monday night, but if you've took the time to listen to this episode, we do appreciate it. Make sure to follow Full Times a Podcast wherever you get your social media so that you don't miss the next episode, and thanks again for taking the time to listen. We'll speak to you next week. Hail, hail.